Watch out! Your staffing agency might be robbing you.
Hey!
What if I told you there's a chance that your agency is robbing you blind? How is that even possible? Well, it's actually very simple. Most of us don't have the patience to look through the fine print of the contract. It's why we ignore the terms and conditions and keep getting lower overtime rates than we deserve. Let me ask you an honest question. Do you know about the overtime laws for you working as a travel nurse in your state? Or do you just accept whatever is put in front of you and written on your monthly paycheck? Many agencies are aware of our disdain for the small details and use this to cheat nurses of their hard-earned cash like we aren't overworked and underpaid enough. So today, I'll discuss how you can confirm if you're getting paid the right amount of overtime and what to do if you find out that your agency is on some financial heist. I've been around and I done worked in many states in my stint as a nursing professional travel nurse. However, there's nowhere I'd rather work as a travel nurse than in the good old state of California. For context, my nursing career began in Oklahoma. I'm embarrassed. And since I left in 2009, I never looked back. I also decided to get 2 years of working experience in good old Texas, which turned out to be an internship and slave labor due to poor staffing ratios. Nobody told me. Interestingly, even though most hospitals in Texas do not have the decency to allow you to enjoy an uninterrupted meal break, they still take 30 minutes from your paycheck. Make it make sense. Tell me again how nurses are the heroes of healthcare? Anyway, I digress. Let me explain what happened during the night shift. I maintain my compact license from Texas in addition to New York and Washington State, which is newly compact as of June 2023. I'm also working on my Minnesota license because I heard through the grapevine that nursing unions are a lot stronger than they are in California. Despite all this, I genuinely believe that California is still the best place to travel, mainly because of the overtime laws. This is facts. Don't believe me? Well, did you know that California overtime laws state that employers must pay overtime at 1.5 times the employee's regular pay rate for all hours worked in excess of up to and including 12 hours in any workday? It also mandates double the standard pay rate for all hours worked beyond 12 hours on any other workday. Finally, employees are entitled to similar double pay after the first 8 hours of work on their 7th consecutive workday. However, there are a few loopholes in this law that hospitals and staffing agencies have been able to successfully and unsuccessfully implement. Nobody enjoys working overtime. I know I don't. At least I'd like to think so anyway. However, if you decide to take on some extra hours, you must ensure that your paycheck, what you're really working for, reflects the passion and dedication that you put into your job. This is why understanding your travel contract and how your staffing agency pays overtime is critical. Yep, we started it. My coworker's dilemma. I have a coworker who's a 25-year nurse veteran. We both work a lot of overtime, up to 60 hours a week. In fact, I know 5 days a week, including a few 16-hour shifts. My body. So yes, you can imagine my expression when she asked me about how my agency paid overtime because she sussed that she was getting screwed over by her agency. As far-reaching as this sounds, it's highly likely, as multiple lawsuits have been filed against staffing agencies like American Mobile, Maxim, True Staff, Westways, and many others for failing to comply with overtime laws. In 2020, a California staffing agency was forced to pay $3.2 million to settle accusations of improperly paying overtime wages to nurses. A more recent case was that of 70 nurses who were not paid overtime wages totaling up to $90,765 by a Michigan staffing agency. Y'all doing us like that? This happened because they were classified as independent contractors rather than employees. Now, whether this was an honest mistake or a deliberate attempt to shortchange these nurses, shame on you. But I guess we'll never know. I'm highly passionate about nurses getting what they deserve. This job is too hard to not get paid every cent. But I'm also very intentional and always want to get the facts right. So, I asked to review her contract before jumping into crime fighting mode, assuming she was being conned. To my surprise, her contract stated that overtime was due to be paid at $105 an hour after working 40 hours. Now, we just talked about overtime laws in California. She was working 60-hour work weeks, meaning at least 20 of those extra hours should have and could have been calculated with this rate. Unfortunately, the devil is usually in the details, and she wasn't aware of a tiny catch that would be responsible for the giant slash in her overtime earnings. In her case, overtime was meant to be paid at $105 an hour only if she had worked 40 regular 8-hour shifts. That's 5 days a week at 8 hours apiece, meaning that she was due for this special overtime rate if and only if she took up a 6th shift. She would only earn $105 an hour. So, for every hour she worked over 36 hours, her travel agency was getting paid overtime according to California state laws. Yet, she only received her contracted base rate of $32 an hour for 8 hours and the 1.5 overtime rate of only $48 an hour. Now remember, she was chasing that 105 and she only got $32 and $48. She most likely never read through the contract before agreeing to these unfavorable terms. And her agency took advantage of this. They do it all the time. It happened to me a long time ago. Interestingly, it turned out that there was a problem with the structure of her overtime payment. Her agency's policy of paying overtime after 40 plus regular hours was only meant to apply to salary employees. My colleague, she was hot. Oh, she was pissed. She was face was red. She was almost in tears. And she had every right to be. Wouldn't you feel the same type of way if your agency was literally robbing you blind and paying your overtime wages incorrectly? That's a lot of work. That's a lot of time. I'd rather be in bed asleep. She was so mad that she began considering filing a lawsuit, which happens to a lot of nurses, a step which I fully understood. Most people would take legal action if they discovered that they've been dealt an unfair hand. And if you too are considering opting for the legal route, there are a few pointers I shared with my fellow nurse that you might find helpful. 1. Ensure that you always log your actual work hours. First, I asked her to get a payroll audit of her work hours versus her income statements. Unfortunately, she made a huge mistake. Big no-no. You must avoid at all costs clocking out late and not billing for all hours worked. Our hospital requires that management fill out an overtime form for staff who clock out at least 15 minutes later than the stipulated closing time. You said you're almost done an hour ago, but you still charting. You need a sheet sign for that. Although my colleague kept clocking out late, every shift due to charting requirements. She was always late. She always indicated on her timesheet that she left on time 7:30 when she submitted her timesheet to the agency. The hospital uses an electronic clock-in, clock-out system called Chronos for timekeeping. And the agency also uses this software to bill for all actual worked hours. So she was inadvertently shooting herself in the foot whenever she failed to report her actual work hours. Trust me, there are many things more painful than being the cause of your own misfortune. Number 2, get some specialized help. Next, I recommend that she consult with a labor lawyer who is highly knowledgeable of California overtime laws. Why? Because she needed a pair of expert eyes to review her contracts, the terms and conditions that she signed with the agency, and confirm that the clause in her contract did not terminate her rights to overtime. State law will always trump a contract. Am I right? Nurses are always guilty of assuming that recruiters actually care about them. Well, allow me to inform you that they don't. These agencies and recruiters are not your friends. I can't emphasize this enough. They are not your friend. They do not love you or work for you. The hospital hires them, and it's their job to look out for their paymaster's needs. And you do know that what these suits in the boardroom care about more than anything else? You guessed it, profits, honey. Shower me with the dollars. That's all they care about. So before you sign any contract, remember that it is your job and yours alone to look out for your best interest. You'd be shocked to discover how quickly the hospital will pass the blame onto you when there's even the slightest challenge. That's why you must invest in protection. I'd be bold enough to advise you to halt your travel nurse plans until you have enough money for this. Keeping a legal service on retainer is more than a luxury. It is a basic necessity in this dog-eat-dog healthcare industry. Let me tell you. I use Legal Shield, honestly, because they're super affordable. I pay like $75 a month for personal and business legal insurance, and they have saved me from making so many costly mistakes. Number 3, you need to have a very honest conversation with your agency. My third and final suggestion was that my colleagues speak directly to the staffing agency to explore the possibility of amending her contract. There's nothing wrong with that. If this didn't work out, though, she would have to terminate the agreement to avoid her status being changed to do not return. How many nurses in here have been DNR'd? Do you even know what a DNR is? Drop it in the chat. Whatever the case, she had to do something about the contract. She was on a 6-month, 36-hour deal, and that's a long time to stay screwed over by your agency. You're probably thinking, with all these problems, who would want to work overtime anyway? But here's the thing, okay? Rates have dropped so much that the current payments for overtime are way higher than the per diem rates in many regions. Add this to the fact that nurses in the San Francisco Bay Area are also eligible, depending on their agency, for a stipend refund with overtime. And you can see why my coworker and I were completely sold out on this company. How dare they? All right. Let me put this into perspective for you. The current per diem market rate for ICU nurses and step-down unit nurses in the San Francisco Bay Area is $101 an hour for ICU and $92 an hour for step-down. However, this is before taxes and stipends are taken out because you're a 1099 employee. So because this is California, you want to take 40% off the top due to tax, and you're left with about $60 for ICU and $55 for step-down. Moreover, we ain't even discussed the accumulating cost of transportation to and from the Bay to reach these new facilities. It may not sound like a big deal, but considering that the price for a one-way trip across the bridges could be $7 and parking per day is like $36. Those few little drops quickly become your budget. Unfortunately, because of the competitive nature of the travel nurse market, everybody want to be a travel nurse since the pandemic because they think we make big bucks. Now, a limited number of those shifts are available. Most per diem shifts are now given on a first come, first served basis at the best facilities, and these opportunities are advertised very random. Sometimes a hospital could post an ad for an open 12-hour day shift at 3 o'clock in the morning and you sleep. And for a nurse who's just about rounding up on their night shift, it's difficult to see the benefits of breaking your sleep cycle just for one extra shift. In my case, the hospital that I work at is chronically short-staffed. I mean, for like the last 10 years, all they didn't have is travel nurses. So I will likely take up overtime at my facility rather than accept extra per diem shifts driving around somewhere else in the Bay. You must be wondering how my agency pays overtime. Or maybe not. But I'd explain it to you anyway because I'm just good at math. Alright, in my company, I receive a little something extra called extra shift compensation. And this ensures that I'm fairly rewarded for any hours worked in excess of my contracted hours. Now, I signed a 48-hour agreement, and so my stipend is spread out across 4 shifts. Essentially, I'm expected to work 4 12-hour shifts each week. If I somehow find a way to channel my inner Wonder Woman and work a 5th shift, every hour is paid an extra $43.17 an hour. Now, mind you, this compensation is completely separate from my regular base pay rate, which at this time is $44.42 per hour. So, let's assume I work a 16-hour shift during this 5th shift. The last 4 hours are paid at 1.5 times the base rate, according to state law. Plus, you gotta add in that little something extra, the extra shift compensation at $43.17 an hour. It sounds like a lot of math, but stick with me here. It's all coming together in a minute. Simply put, I'm saying that each time I choose to work a 16-hour 5th shift, I will receive my base pay rate of $44.42 an hour and the $43.17 an hour extra shift compensation. For the final 4 hours, I will receive the overtime rate of 1.5 times the base pay, or $66.63, and the $43.17 extra shift compensation. That's not all. I'm also entitled to a tax-free stipend refund of $45.27 in exchange for the extra shift compensation if I have it in my bank. However, this only applies if I have any unused stipend funds left. Fortunately, my agency keeps my funds in a holding bank, and I always ensure I'm getting all that tax-free money maxed out. All right. One extra shift through my agency is approximately $1,148 versus my co-workers $448. That's just ridiculous. But it's no surprise when you stop to think about it. I've learned to choose the right agency after all these years of being a travel nurse, read through my contract, and negotiate like a boss. So my outcomes would undoubtedly be different than the rest of the pack. Getting the best deal on your travel nurse contract depends on how much information you have at your disposal. My first contract was slashed by $1,000 a week. Oh, it hurt my heart. However, I did get a $250 completion bonus at the end and a $1,000 extension bonus and an additional $600 tax-free travel reimbursement for the time that I took off work. This isn't hard if you find the right person to show you the ropes, baby. And I have an entire ebook and a course that can do just that. Click on the link in the description box and start getting paid what you're due. Stronger Nurse got you. My overtime motivation. I'm so old. I am such a better nurse. I'm so old as a nurse that I gotta have motivation to work overtime, because otherwise, don't call me. I ain't getting out of bed. Most people, though, they work overtime just for the benefit of a few extra dollars in their bank account. But for me, it's different. My drive for higher income is because of my need to invest in coaching and build a sustainable brand without sacrificing my health or my lifestyle. I gotta take good care of me. I know many people think work-life balance is for the weak. But even the half-human, half-cyborg entrepreneur, trillionaire Elon Musk has maybe one day off each week to refill his bio oil. What y'all think? Mark Zuckerberg too. Whether we like to admit it or not, humans can only work so many hours before burning out. Facts. I find it incredibly disheartening that nurses like my coworker drag their tired bones into work 60 hours a week only to fund someone else's dreams. I've been down that road, and I can tell you it is not pretty. Never, ever sacrifice your well-being for another person's goals. Never. Instead, turn your attention inward towards investing in yourself. It may look like you can't achieve much with your current paycheck, but there's so much potential in there if only you can have a budget for personal development. Ultimately, it's not just what you earn that counts. It's what you do with it. My financial coach once told me that I could shoot for the moon while planning to stay grounded here on Earth. Well, I'm just getting started building my rocket ship for a one-way trip to the universe. And I'm inviting you to hop on board as we learn and grow together. The Stronger Nurse brand is evolving, and you're a significant part of that story. Hit the subscribe button to access more career-transforming content from this channel. Stronger Nurse, out.